skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul and seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons.
It was a dark and stormy night in the small town of Willow Creek. Alyssa was walking home from her late shift at the diner when she was approached by a mysterious figure in the shadows. The figure grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth with a firm hand. Alyssa was too scared to scream, and the figure seemed to know this. Alyssa was dragged into an abandoned building and tied to a chair in the center of the room. The figure stepped forward and Alyssa realized it was another young woman, around her own age. The woman had wild eyes and a crazed look about her. She carried a large hunting knife and began to circle Alyssa. The woman proceeded to stab Alyssa a total of 29 times. As Alyssa pleaded for her life, after the woman was finished, she began to dismember Alyssa's body and take her organs one by one. The police found what remained of Alyssa and quickly apprehended the other woman. It turns out that she had escaped from a nearby mental hospital and had been living on the streets. She was sent back to the institution and charged with the murder of Alyssa. The town of Willow Creek was never the same after the horrific event. And to this day, no one knows why the woman attacked her.
Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Natalie in a small town. She was a happy-go-lucky girl who loved spending time to explore abandoned places. One night, Natalie was at her friend's house when she heard about an abandoned mansion far away. She decided to explore it alone, but didn't tell anyone. When Natalie arrived at the mansion, she quickly became fascinated with the place. The walls were covered in ivy, the floors were made of marble, and the furniture was large and ornate. As Natalie explored the mansion, she got lost and stumbled upon a candlelit room. Inside the room was an old man, who was muttering to himself. He told Natalie that he had been cursed by an evil witch. The old man then offered Natalie the chance to break the curse and save him. However, in exchange, he said she would have to set fire to the mansion and make sure it burned to the ground. Natalie reluctantly agreed, thinking she could do it. Natalie set fire to the mansion and ran out, hoping that the old man's curse was broken. Unfortunately, the fire quickly spread and engulfed the entire mansion. She tried to open the main door, but the door was locked. She screamed for help, but no one heard her. She became trapped inside and perished in the flames. The town people and the police never found her and don't even know what happened to her.
Arya always loved the beauty of flowers, admiring their bright colors and sweet scents. But unfortunately, Arya was allergic to all kinds of flowers. Her allergy was so severe that even a single touch of a flower could make her sick, and her parents had to be very careful to make sure she never came into contact with any. Arya was always teased by her classmates and friends for her allergy, but all the teasing couldn't dampen her love for flowers. She would look longingly at them from afar, wishing with all her heart that she could touch them without fear of getting sick. One day, Arya decided to take a walk in the countryside. Everywhere she looked, fields of wildflowers blanketed the landscape, and Arya was entranced. She couldn't help but admire their beauty and wish that she could run through the meadows, like she saw some children doing in the distance. But as much as she wanted to, she stayed away. On her way home, Arya decided to take a different route, one that went through a mysterious forest. It seemed almost enchanted, and curiosity got the best of her. She ventured further and further in, until she finally arrived at a small pond. In the center of the pond was an island, and on the island grew a single flower. Arya's eyes widened in amazement. Never before had she seen such a beautiful flower. She felt compelled to reach out and touch it, despite the warning bells going off in her head. Taking a deep breath, Arya stepped onto the island and reached out for the flower. She picked up the flower and smelled it. She was so captivated by its beauty that she forgot her surroundings. Arya then felt dizzy and fell on the floor. The next day, Arya's parents called the police. The police searched the mysterious forest. There sat a flower which was so beautiful that the police officers were also captivated by its beauty and forgot their surroundings. They soon felt dizzy and fell on the floor. Nobody ever knew what happened to Arya and the police officers who were searching for her. Ava had always been a strange girl. She lived with her parents in a rundown house at the end of town, and they never seemed to leave. Despite the rumors that circulated about them, people still went to visit them. But they never came back. One day, a small girl named Nora was playing with her friends in the garden. She saw a beautiful butterfly in the garden and she started to chase her. As she was chasing the butterfly, she went inside a house. She was met by an eerie silence. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Taking a deep breath, she cautiously stepped inside. The house was dilapidated and dark. She heard muffled voices coming from down the hall and decided to investigate. Peeking around the corner, she was horrified to see Ava and her parents gathered around a table, with a pile of eyes in the center. Nora realized too late that these were the eyes of the people who had disappeared. In a panic, Nora tried to run out of the house, but Ava and her parents caught up with her. They grabbed her, forced her into a chair and tied her. As Ava brandished a knife, her parents pinned Nora down and Ava proceeded to cut out her eyes. As Ava took Nova's eyes out, she put it in the jar and placed it on the shelf. The following day, Nova's brother Jack was worried about her sister that she didn't came home last night. So he called the police. The police found Nova's dead body at the Ava's and her parents' house, downstairs in the basement, in the secret room. The police said that there were more dead bodies of other missing people. The police also said that the eyes of the dead bodies were in the jars on the shelves. Ava and her family were life sentenced for killing all those people.
Ruby is a very quiet, shy and introverted girl. Her best friend Jane sets her up on a date. When Ruby goes on her date has not arrived yet. After some time, he arrives. He introduces himself as Luke. Ruby feels very uncomfortable around him. And she also wants to stay single, so she rejects him. The next morning, Ruby's phone fell on the ground when she was walking down the stairs. She goes to repair her phone. She evaluated all her options and decided to get it fixed, so she found a small repair shop nearby. The man running the shop was a suspicious character. He had shifty eyes that seemed to follow Ruby around the room, and his face was covered with mask. He made her wait in an area of the shop that didn't have any surveillance cameras, and asked her an excessive amount of questions about her phone before he started to work on it. When Ruby returned a few days later to pick up her phone, the man handed it to her in an offhanded manner as if nothing was wrong. She suspects a strange tattoo on his arm. She thanks him and exited the shop, feeling relieved. The next morning, Ruby decides to do her assignment on the phone. But her phone keeps on lagging, so she turns it off. In the evening, Ruby reads a missing people news on newspaper. All of the missing people posters are about girls. She gets scared, but shakes it off. As Ruby turns off her room light and lays on her bed, she notices a strange light coming out of her phone. She ignores it, and goes back to sleep. The next day, after her night shift ends, Ruby is walking through the street. As she is walking, she feels like someone is behind her. Ruby looks behind, but there is no one. She hears footsteps coming from behind her. As she hears the footsteps, she starts to walk a little faster. Ruby looks to her left and there is a transparent glass in which she sees that someone is following her. She looks behind and she sees a hooded man following her. She starts to walk faster than before, but suddenly a van comes in front of her. The van door is opened by a tall man whose face is covered. He tries to put her in the van, but Ruby struggles and tries to run. The man behind her catches up with her and he struggles to put her in the van. As they succeed to kidnap her, the tall man puts a cloth on her face. Ruby feels dizzy and falls asleep. A few hours have passed and Ruby wakes up from her unconsciousness. She finds herself tied up with a rope tightly on a chair. Her hands are cuffed and her mouth is taped. She lowers her head up to her knees, so her hands can reach the hair pin she's wearing. She breaks her pin, The room is pitch black. She hardly opens her cuffs and unties herself. She stands up to find the room door, but she stumbles on something and falls hard on the floor. She finally finds the door and opens it cautiously. Ruby starts to search for a main door. But the house is too big. So she starts to look for her phone to call for help. Ruby is shocked when she finds a room full of screens. And on screens, there are live videos of girls. Someone is sleeping. Someone is scrolling through her phone. Someone is taking pictures of herself. She sees a few black screens at the bottom, and there on top left corner are alphabets written, such as S-A, D-E, B-Y, and dates are mentioned as well. She sees the alphabet R-Y, and the date mentioned on it is today's date. When she figures out the alphabets, R-Y means Ruby, her name, and today's date is the date of her kidnapping. She is so shocked and was standing frozen when she heard footsteps approaching the room. She quickly hides in the tall cabinet and sees two people walking inside the room in which she is. She puts her hand on her mouth as they stand in front of the screens and talk about how they are going to sell the girls they kidnapped and to whom. Also about the girls they are soon going to kidnap. When the two people who were talking disappeared out of Ruby's sight, she gets out of the tall cabinet and quickly searches for her phone. When they found out that Ruby had escaped her room, they set a trap for Ruby by putting her phone on the floor. Ruby finds her phone on the floor and picks it up. She tries to call the police, but her phone does not turn on. Suddenly, the siren starts to ring in the building. Scared, Ruby throws her phone on the ground and runs. But the man catches her. The man then takes her to the bathroom, clutching her hair in his hands tightly. He then proceeds to turn on the tap water, as Ruby sees his tattoo on his hand. She remembers that she saw it somewhere, but where? Before she can think too much, the man starts to drown her in water. He does this for a few times. But Ruby picks up the shower head nozzle and hits him hardly in his head. She is shocked when she sees his face. It was Luke, her date she rejected. She quickly checks his pocket and grabs his phone. The other man comes out of nowhere. When she sees him, she starts to run away. But there is a dead end. She faces the other way and the tall man is standing there. He laughs and says, "Where do you think you're going? You thought you were gonna escape." He pulls out a knife from his pocket and proceeds to stab Ruby. She gets stabbed in her arm, but she quickly dodges his another attack. They fall hard on the ground and his knife slides in the other direction of the hall. She starts to slide towards the knife, but he holds her leg tightly in his hand. With the help of her other leg, she punches in his face and succeeds in picking his knife. She gets up and quickly stabs him in his stomach before he can kill her. Ruby runs towards the room where she locks herself and calls the police for help. 10 minutes later, the police arrives and rescue all the girls who were locked in the building. The police caught the whole gang and told them that the whole gang planned to date the girls first, somehow hid hidden cameras in their phones, took them to their house to kidnap them and kept them in the building to sell them. A few months have now passed, but Ruby still cannot forget the horrifying incident that occurred.
Once upon a time, in a small, isolated town, lived a pregnant woman named Sophia. She was 7 months pregnant, happy and excited about her first child. Sophia lived in a big house with her husband, Thomas, who was a doctor. Everything seemed perfect, until one night Sophia's world was turned upside down. A horrible storm blew into the town, and it soon became clear that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. Sophia heard strange noises coming from outside her house, and at first she thought nothing of it. But then one night, she woke up in a cold sweat with someone whispering her name. With great fear, Sophia looked out the window, and to her shock she saw a tall, cloaked figure standing there. She screamed as the figure stepped forward and whispered something in a language Sophia could not understand. Fearing for her life, Sophia ran to her husband's room and told him what she had seen. Thomas was worried but tried to remain calm. He told Sophia to stay in the house and warned her not to go outside no matter what she heard. Days passed as the sound of ghostly whispers haunted Sophia's every move. She started to think that the figure was after her unborn child, as it seemed to be circling her house. Soon enough, her fears were proven right. Just before her due date, Sophia felt a sharp pain in her stomach and knew something was wrong. When she went into labor, strange symbols appeared all over her body, and she felt a strange force tugging her from within. As she lay there screaming in agony, the cloaked figure appeared again and grabbed her baby. The figure disappeared and Sophia was left distraught and confused. Thomas and the local villagers searched every corner of the town for the figure, but to no avail. To this day, no one knows what happened to Sophia's newborn child or the mysterious figure that took it. It is said that Sophia still wanders the town in search for her lost baby.
Ruby had always been fascinated by the paranormal. As a child, she had spent hours reading books about ghosts, werewolves, and vampires. She had grown up to become a highly respected paranormal investigator, leading her own team of experts in the field. When a new case presented itself, an old house on a hill that was rumored to be haunted, Ruby jumped at the chance to investigate the place and uncover its secrets. It was a risk, of course. None of her team members wanted to go into the house after the sun set. But Ruby wasn't afraid. She knew they had to take the chance if they wanted to find out what lurked inside the dark mansion. And so, when nightfall came, Ruby and her team entered the house, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Soon, however, it became apparent that something sinister was afoot. Lights flickered, strange noises echoed in the hallways, and shadows seemed to move when no one was around. As the night wore on, one by one each member of her team started to die in horrific ways. When Ruby saw one of her members was being killed in front of her eyes, she accidentally recorded it in her camera. When she saw the killer face, she was so shocked. Now Ruby knew the truth about the haunted house and also had a proof. She started to run as fast as she could to get out of the house and reveal the truth to the world. Desperate to escape the mansion, Ruby pushed through the darkness to find her way out while holding the camera in her hand. Suddenly, she felt something cold and wet on her neck, and a voice whispered in her ear. It was the surviving investigator, her team investigator Ben. Ben said to Ruby, "Yes, I am the one who did all of this. And there is no one who can stop me." He grabbed a knife from his pocket and stabbed Ruby directly in her heart. The next day, police arrived at the scene and found Ruby and all her team members' death. All the members were stabbed with a knife. The police found the knife with blood on it. They detected all the members' blood on it. Ruby, Stacy, Charlie, Chloe, and Ben. When one of the police officers found a camera in Ben's hand, they saw a video in which Chloe was stabbing herself with a knife. To this day, no one knows who killed Ruby and all her team members. Anna was an introverted girl who loved to spend her time alone. She always felt comfortable in her own company and was always eager to explore new things. One day, while rummaging around her attic, she stumbled upon an old 80s phone. It was dusty and the color was peeling off, but Anna had a feeling about it. She decided to bring it down and take it into her room. When she arrived in her room, she plugged it in, and to her surprise, the phone began to ring. She was taken aback and did not know what to do. After taking a deep breath, she answered it. The voice on the other end was faint but hoarse. Anna could barely make out what it was saying. After a few moments of conversation, she found out that the person on the other end was an old man. They started talking every day and soon enough, Anna was befriending him as if she knew him. However, one day, Anna did not answer the phone. She was so busy with school and family that she forgot about it. It rang multiple times, but she did not answer. After a few days, the phone started ringing again. This time, she answered it. But there was no one on the other end. Instead, she heard a hoarse voice that said, "Talk to me," in an angry tone. Anna immediately got scared. She quickly hung up and unplugged the phone, never wanting to talk to anyone from it again. Days passed and Anna tried to forget about the phone, but it kept appearing in her dreams. The voice of the old man, now replaced by an angry one, constantly whispering, "Talk to me," in the night. One day, when she came home from school, the phone started to ring. This time it rang louder than before. The angry voice was coming from inside the phone without even picking it up. She was shocked and terrified. The voice was demanding that she must talk to it or it would come out of the phone and finish her off. Fearing for her life, Anna reluctantly agreed. She spoke with the voice every day, trying to make sense of what was happening. One day, Anna had enough. She turned off her phone and threw it hard on the floor. It broke down into pieces. Anna was finally relieved that she was safe now that the phone is broken down. But as soon as she turned away, a giant monster came out of the phone. Anna got scared. The monster yelled at her, "Talk to me." She ran towards her room and locked it. The monster broke her door with his giant and sharp claws and ran towards her. The monster grabbed her neck and screamed at her, "Talk to me." Anna was so scared she refused to talk. As she refused to talk to it, it digged its claws in her stomach. The blood dripping from her body. It digged even more and ate her whole at once. Once upon a time, there was an airline that had a reputation for being haunted. This airline earned the nickname, the Haunted Airline. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the plane that disappeared. It was a dark and stormy night, and the passengers on the flight were getting restless. The turbulence was so bad that everyone started to panic. Suddenly, the cabin lights flickered and went out. A silence fell over the cabin, and the passengers all looked to each other in fear. This happened quite a few times until the lights stopped flickering and completely went out. A loud voice of thunder shattered the calm and everyone started to panic. After that, everything seemed to go quiet for a moment. That is until the ghostly voice filled the plane. The passengers gasped in shock as they saw a ghostly figure floated through the cabin. A strange, heavy voice filled in the air. "I am here to tell you that you are not alone," the figure said. "When this plane disappears tonight, I will be with you." The figure then vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Everyone on the plane was terrified, but at the same time they felt that the pilot was joking around with them, and someone from the crew was walking in the dark. Everything went well after that, until the plane reached to its destination. The crew was expected to contact the controllers in less than a minute. But a few moments later, there's no word from plane. Controllers tried desperately to reach the missing plane. There is no response through the cockpit and no sign of a plane on radar. The plane was vanished without a trace. Only questions remained. No one knows what really happened to the airline, and to this day, no one has been able to explain their mysterious disappearance.
Anya had always loved playing with Barbies, so when her parents told her that they were going to take her to a very famous Barbie store, where there is a large variety of all kinds of Barbies, she was naturally excited. As they arrived at the store, they saw that the full store was stacked with different kinds of Barbies. Anya could barely contain the joy she felt in anticipation of picking out her very own Barbie. As her parents went further into the store, the lights suddenly went out. Scared, Anya went far away and looking for her parents. She was lost alone in the dark and was scared. Anya's parents called out for her but she didn't answer. She was terrified of being alone in the dark, so much so that she had curled up in the corner of the store. She called her parents, but her parents were nowhere to be found. Suddenly, the Barbies on the shelves began to move and creep towards Anya one by one. They all started to laugh and said to her, "We are here to get you." She screamed for help and started to run. But they chased her around the store and caught her. Her parents heard her terrible cries and rushed to rescue their daughter, but it was too late. The lights turned on out of nowhere. When they arrived, they couldn't find their daughter. After seeing their daughter turned into a Barbie and trapped in a box, they went to the checkout and there the cashier gave them thousands of dollars and thanked them for selling such a beautiful Barbie. Anya's mother said, "No problem. The other kids will be happy to have her." After she said this, Anya's parents left the store without looking back. Catherine was always fascinated by masks ever since she was a little girl. Her father was an antiques collector, and her born talent in making masks had grown from there on. Over the years, Catherine's skill in crafting masks had become masterful. Her masks were unique and beautiful, each with its own story to tell. But Catherine had never satisfied herself. She wanted something more. One day, Catherine stumbled across a book about human taxidermy, the ancient art of preserving human bodies through skin carving. Using artwork as inspiration, Catherine realized that she could create her own signature mask made from real human skin. She knew it would be the most amazing mask she had ever made. So began her journey into darkness. Catherine started her search for specimens for her macabre craft. She haunted mortuaries, cemeteries, and morgues in search of her latest conquest. She was ruthless in her hunt for fresh skins. With each specimen, Catherine became bolder in her work. She intertwined creative stories of life and death into her masks, giving them a unique flair. Soon, her work caught the attention of the wealthy, and soon enough, her pockets were overflowing. The more she created, the darker her art became. And then one day, Catherine found the ultimate specimen, herself. She took the skin from her own face, and carefully crafted a mask from within. This was the capstone of her work, an artistic representation of her dark journey. From then on, Catherine wore the mask of death everywhere she went. Everywhere she went, people said they could feel the spirits around her. Some went so far as to say she was cursed, but regardless of what people said, Catherine was content with her choice. This is the twisted tale of Catherine, the girl who made masks from human skin. Once there was a young ballerina named Bailey. She had always dreamed of becoming a famous ballerina, so she worked hard to perfect her skills. Her parents were very proud of her talent and fully supported her in her passion for dance. She auditioned for a prestigious ballet school in the city and was accepted. She had so much excitement for the start of her new journey into adulthood, and she was ready to become the best ballerina that she could be. But things didn't go as planned. Despite her immense talent and determination, she struggled with a specific move that all the other dancers seemed to be able to do effortlessly. Bailey worked harder and harder on this move, but to no avail. She became frustrated and eventually, all the other dancers started to make fun of her. It wasn't long before Bailey's teacher started to take notice. She pulled her aside one day and told her that, if she couldn't get the move right, she was going to be asked to leave the school. This news devastated Bailey. She felt like she was being judged, and that all her hard work was for nothing. Bailey decided to get help, and she was referred to an old man who lived in a distant part of the city. He said that he could teach her the move if she promised to come to his home every day to practice for the move. Bailey, desperate for help, agreed. The old man was strange. His home was filled with eerie objects and the walls were covered in strange symbols. He worked with her each day on the move, but his lessons seemed more like dark magic rather than dance. Bailey started to get scared and wondered why this old man knew so much about dancing. Finally, after a few months, Bailey was able to complete the move. The old man warned her that if she ever told anyone about what had happened, he would put a dark curse on her. Terrified, Bailey returned to the ballet school and was able to demonstrate the move. She was welcomed back with open arms. She did an amazing performance that everyone was amazed. They asked her about her practice, tips and tricks, so she told them about the old man and how she was able to do the move perfectly, but the entire experience had taken its toll. When a time came for her next performance, Bailey was a changed person. She was pale, thin, and withdrawn. Her once bright eyes had dimmed. When she was on the stage, she suddenly started dancing. She danced for hours. She was so tired. She tried to stop herself but was failed. No matter how hard the other dancers tried to stop Bailey, she just couldn't seem to stop herself. Her legs started to bleed. Other dancers started to get scared. She died on the stage while performing. Everyone who saw her knew something horrible had happened.
The world was buzzing with excitement as news spread that the most talked about celebrity, Sophia James, would be hosting a grand party at her mansion. The invitations had been sent out to all the A-listers in the industry, and anyone was eager to attend. Despite the enthusiasm of the attendees, something sinister seemed to be lurking in the shadows of the sprawling mansion. Sophia had been experiencing strange and unexplainable events ever since she moved in a month ago. Mysterious screams could be heard coming from the upstairs bedrooms late at night, and strange shadows moved along the hallway walls. Unnerving as these happenings were, Sophia was determined to move forward with the event, and not let anything spoil her party. The night of the party arrived, and the guests entered full of curiosity and excitement. For a while, it seemed like the night would be a success, and many of the guests couldn't stop raving about the beauty and luxury of the mansion. But towards the end of the night, everything changed. A loud crash echoed down the hallway, followed by a long, blood-curdling scream. Panic spread through the crowd of guests, who quickly moved to find safety. As they scattered, some of the brave ones stayed behind to find out what had happened. They soon discovered that one of the bedrooms upstairs had been smashed open from the inside, and the bed was soaked in blood. On the floor lay the lifeless body of Sophia James with her eyes still wide open in terror. At first the police believed that Sophia had been murdered, but the case quickly became more complicated. A thorough investigation found that there were no signs of forced entry into the mansion, nor any evidence to suggest that anyone had been present in the bedroom at the time of her death. The case has never been solved, and to this day remains an unsolved mystery. But the strange occurrences in the mansion had not stopped with her death. Guests have reported hearing mysterious cries coming from the upstairs bedrooms, and some have even seen mysterious shadows moving along the hallway walls. It is said that the spirit of Sophia James still haunts her mansion, seeking vengeance for the way she died. For anyone brave enough to venture into the mansion, beware of the haunting figure of Sophia James that may be lurking in the shadows. Mary Novella had a dream since she was little. She always wanted to be a 911 call operator. She was fascinated by movies and TV shows that showed how these operators saved people's lives by answering emergency calls, dispatching first responders, and keeping people calm in terrifying situations. When she was old enough, Mary pursued her dream and started to apply to various 911 call centers. Mary visited the public safety answering point to give her interview. When she arrived, she saw a group of people sitting in front of computers and phone lines. They were all wearing headsets and typing furiously as they answered emergency calls from the public. Mary could see the intensity on their faces as they listened to every detail of the caller's situation and processed the information they were given. She then meets the supervisor of public safety answering point. Lisa Brown, a seasoned veteran of emergency services, had been working at the public safety answering point for over a decade. She greeted Mary with a warm smile and invited her to sit down in her office. "Welcome to the public safety answering point, Mary," Lisa said, gesturing to a chair. Mary takes a seat. After completing her interview, Lisa immediately made a phone call to order 2 cups of tea, and also requested to speak to Mia Abigail at her office. Mary expressed her uncertainty upon hearing the name Mia Abigail. "Wait, did you just said Mia Abigail?" Mary asked in a questionable voice. Yes, what happened?" Lisa asked. "She is my best friend from university," Mary replies. "Glad to hear that. I called her here to guide you. She will help you around. You are selected, but we need to put you on trial for a few months," Lisa said. Mia greeted Mary with a warm hug upon seeing her in the office, after which they moved outside to engage in conversation. "I am so happy that you are here to help me," Mary says in an excited voice. "Well, yeah. I am very happy, but where were you all those years ago? I called you thousands of times but you never answered," Mia asked. "You know, life was always tough for me. I will tell you all about it, and about my number. I changed it years ago," Mary replied. Lisa emerged from her office and introduced Mary to the operators, stating that she was a new operator on trial for a few months and would be guided by Mia Abigail. Lisa wished Mary good luck, and Mary expressed her gratitude before beginning her trial. She went through a rigorous test process, including psychological evaluations and written exams. After months of trying, she finally got the job as a 911 call operator at Public Safety Answering Point, PSAP. Kevin was thrilled when his parents told him it was his turn to choose where to go for their family night out. After thinking for a few minutes, he smiled and enthusiastically told them he wanted to go to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. They nodded in agreement and quickly began to make their way to the restaurant. When they arrived, they were greeted by a large building with bright neon lights and a big sign announcing the famous eatery. The interior of the restaurant was lavishly decorated with various cartoon and video game characters on the walls, and colorful lights and sounds coming from the arcade games. It truly was a sight to behold. Kevin's eyes widened as he saw the animatronics that had been placed around the restaurant. They moved and talked in a mechanical manner, and Kevin couldn't help but marvel at them. His parents, however, were already used to the robotic attractions and simply took it in stride. After ordering their meals and eating, the family decided to take a walk and explore the restaurant's surroundings. As they made their way to the arcade, Kevin suddenly felt an eerie chill and noticed that the animatronics had stopped moving. He nervously clutched his father's hand as they continued to wander around the area. After a few minutes, Kevin realized that his parents had somehow disappeared. He frantically ran around the restaurant and tried calling out for them, but there was no answer. He began to panic as he realized he was now alone in the dark and eerie Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant. He noticed that the animatronics had started to move again. They all seemed to be looking directly at him, as if they were trying to communicate with him. But before he could figure out what they wanted, Kevin heard a loud bang and a sharp screech coming from the other side of the restaurant. He quickly ran towards the sound thinking that it must be his parents. But he stumbled into a room full of broken animatronic parts. Startled and scared, he tried to find a way to escape. But it was too late. Suddenly, the head animatronic, Freddy Fazbear, appeared in the middle of the room. It growled menacingly and started to advance towards Kevin. With no way to escape, Kevin knew he had to fight for his life. He picked up an old pipe and tried to fend off the robot, but it kept coming. Soon, all he could do was scream as he felt the cold metal hands of Freddy Fazbear slowly encase his body. Kevin managed to break free from the robot's grip and ran back outside, where his parents were waiting. They were relieved to see him safe and rushed him away from the restaurant. To this day, Kevin remembers that night at Freddy Fazbear's. He still gets nightmares about the large animatronic chasing him, and can't shake the feeling that something even more sinister lurks beneath the shiny facade of the popular pizza place. The dark web was a place most people avoided, a place where the darkest and most twisted of humanity's desires could be found, a place where the hidden secrets of reality lie in wait for those brave enough to explore them. Lucas had heard all the stories, but he never paid them any heed, until his curiosity got the better of him. With an old laptop he found at the back of his attic, he began to explore the dark web. At first, he thought it was just a twisted game, like the horror movies he used to watch as a kid. But, as he continued to browse, things started to become stranger. He stumbled upon websites with bizarre and gruesome photos, some too disturbing for him to look at. Websites offering up dangerous contraband and even black market organs. And then there were the chat rooms, filled with people discussing everything from the most heinous crimes imaginable to the existence of extra-dimensional beings. Lucas stumbled upon a deep web. The screen was black and people were talking in the chat box. Suddenly, the screen turned on. A man was standing in front of a camera. He was wearing a mask and in his hand was a chainsaw. When he stepped aside, there was a girl tied up to chains. The man then began to ask the people, "Should I cut her arm?" People in the chat box got excited and said yes. The man took his steps towards the girl. The girl started to beg for her life, but the man turned on his chainsaw and proceeded to cut her arm. He came again in front of the camera and asked again, "Should I cut her other arm?" The majority of the people said yes, and so, he proceeded to cut off her other arm. The girl screamed as he cut at her other arm. Lucas felt sick to his stomach. He tried to turn off his laptop but he couldn't. The man came in front of the camera. He picked up a jar and said, "Let's see who is our next guest for the next week." He picked up a paper and was about to unfold it. But the girl behind him was crying for help. You are so annoying," the man said in an angry voice. He angrily threw the paper on the table and turned on his chainsaw. As he took his steps closer to her, she begged even more, which made him more angry, and he sliced the chainsaw through her neck. "Now, she won't disturb us," the man said. He then picked up the paper and said, "Lucas." Lucas wasn't able to move after what had happened. He tried to turn off his laptop, but he couldn't shut it off. The man on the screen said, "Your eyes are beautiful. Don't try to turn off your laptop, it won't shut down." Lucas threw his laptop to the wall. It broke into pieces. He was finally relieved that he was safe. But as the days passed, Lucas began to receive strange messages from unknown sources, claiming to have knowledge about Lucas and his past. The messages said, "Your eyes are beautiful. The brown jacket you wore today was awesome. Can I have it? Your room window is so big. I can see you while you're sleeping." The next day, Lucas told the police everything about it and they asked for proof, but when he opened his phone to show the messages, there were no messages. As if they were not there at all. Lucas couldn't fall asleep. He kept his eyes fixed on the windows, but as soon he fell asleep, he woke up when he heard the noise of his window breaking. He tried to run away but was failed. When Lucas woke up, he found himself tied up to chains and the same person was standing in front of the camera. He was talking to the people, and when he saw Lucas, he came towards him. He picked up the cutting pliers from the table and took out Lucas' eyes. Lucas begged him but he didn't listen. He heard his footsteps descending away from him. The man then said, "What should I do next?" The man then proceeded to cut every part of Lucas' body according to people's request. In the end, Lucas was left as nothing but a mutilated corpse, another victim of the dark web. The dark corners of the internet continued to thrive, drawing in more unsuspecting victims like moths to a flame.
Emily and Jessica decided to have a sleepover at Jessica's house. As the night wore on and they ran out of things to do, Jessica suggested they play a game of Never Have I Ever. The game started off innocently enough, with each of them sharing secrets they had never told anyone else before. As they were about to switch to a new topic, Emily noticed something strange in the corner of the room. She pointed it out to Jessica, who had not yet seen it, an unusually tall, cloaked figure. Before either of them could run away, the figure stepped out of the shadows and spoke. It said that if they wanted to continue the game, they must first answer 3 riddles and 1 question. If they failed to solve the 3 riddles, their souls would be taken away by the figure. Emily and Jessica were paralyzed with fear, but they knew they had to try to solve the riddles to save themselves. The figure presented the first riddle. "I am always hungry, I must always be fed. But if you give me water, I soon will be dead. What am I?" The girls thought for a moment. Suddenly, Emily remembered that the answer is fire. The figure presented the second riddle. "I can bring tears to your eyes, resurrect the dead, make you smile, and reverse time." Jessica said a photograph. The figure then presented the last riddle. "I have cities, but no houses. I have mountains, but no trees. I have water, but no fish." Map, Emily said. Before asking the last question, the figure said that there are 2 rules. 1. There can be only 1 winner. 2. If you want to survive, you'll have to fight for it. The figure then asked the last question. Never have I ever lied while playing this game. Both of them looked around at each other, their eyes darting nervously. They had each taken turns sharing their deepest, darkest secrets and regrets, and now this final question seemed to hang in the air like a looming threat. The figure laughed menacingly. It was clear that the figure had known all along who had lied and who had not, and was now letting them know that he knew. They both cowered in fear, dreading what would come next. As the figure stepped closer, its intentions became clearer. The game was far from over. Emily tried to inch away, but the figure's cold voice stilled Emily. "Where do you think you're going?" it snarled, raising a deadly claw. "The rules dictate that there can be only 1 winner. And if you want to survive, you'll have to fight for it." Emily and Jessica both knew that they had lied. Emily wanted to survive, so she ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. As she approached Jessica, the air thickened with tension. Emily raised the knife, and Jessica stared at her in shock. "Emily, what are you doing?" she cried out. "I'm sorry, Jessica," Emily replied, tears streaming down her face. "But I have to do this. It's the only way for me to win, to survive." Jessica began to back away from Emily's threatening stance, fear evident in her face. But as she turned to run, Emily lunged forward, plunging the blade into Jessica's chest. Jessica staggered backward and collapsed to the floor in a lifeless heap. Emily had won.
Once there was a beautiful and vibrant young woman named Addison. She lived a normal life working at a local coffee shop and spending her free time with friends and family. However, little did she know, she had a stalker who had been watching her every move for months. His name was Leon. He had been following her all around town, silently watching and learning her daily routine. Soon enough, his obsession with her had grown so strong that he felt like he needed to be near her constantly. One night, Addison was doing her night shift when she noticed a figure staring at her from outside. She wasn't sure who it was because he was wearing a hoodie. She ignored it and started making a latte for the customer who was waiting in line. After the customer left, the man who had been staring at her entered the establishment and took a seat at a table towards the rear. He didn't order anything or use his mobile device. Instead, he just sat there, continuing to fixate on her. She was terrified. Luckily, a customer arrived which made Addison feel relieved that at least someone else was present. She attempted to ask the man for help, but he appeared completely engrossed in his phone. Eventually, the customer left and Addison was left alone with him. He then stood up from his table and walked over to her. "Hello," he said. "Hi. How can I help you?" Addison said. "Will you be?" Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a group of boys who rushed into the cafe. "Can I have an Americano?" he said in a very low voice. Addison barely heard him. She made Americano for him. He took his Americano, but this time, he sat on the table near her. She took their orders and served them their drinks. Fortunately, a group of women walked into the cafe just before the gang departed. They placed an order for various beverages such as latte, cappuccino, Americano, and espresso. Addison served them their drinks and they sat down at a table. After a while, he excused himself and went to the restroom. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Addison confided in the girls about her suspicions that the man is stalking her. The women stayed with her for the rest of her shift and even accompanied her up to her doorstep when she was done. The next day, Addison walked towards the coffee shop. She felt secure and didn't see the man around. Even when it got dark, she felt relieved that the man had disappeared, but things suddenly took a dark turn. When Addison was walking home from her night shift, she felt that someone was behind her. She ignored it and kept walking. Suddenly, Leon appeared and jumped out at her, scaring her. She was feeling uneasy, so she began to take large strides and he did the same. She started to run away, but Leon followed her, making sure she didn't get away. Addison entered her house and quickly locked the door. Leon tried to get in, but the door didn't budge. He started to cry and begged her to let him in. But she didn't open the door. Leon declared his love for her, but Addison was too afraid to accept it. She threatened to call the police, but Leon wouldn't back down. She dialed 911. But he begged her to hear him out. He started to tell her his story. He had been loving her from afar and was scared of rejection. But now, seeing her in person, he knew that she was the one for him. Addison was extremely scared when she heard a loud bang and then witnessed Leon breaking down the door. She immediately ran upstairs, but he caught her from behind and expressed her love for her. Suddenly, he heard police sirens approaching rapidly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun when the officers burst in. He aimed at her and threatened to kill anyone who came near them. "Why are you doing this to me?" he shouted at her. The police desperately attempted to control him, but he wouldn't listen. "If you won't be with me, I'll kill us both." He was about to pull the trigger, when one of the officers managed to tackle him from behind. The gun fired, hitting Addison's arm. She was rushed to the hospital straight away. Leon was arrested soon after, but the trauma Addison had experienced had left lasting damage. She was haunted by nightmares and always feared that someone was watching her. No matter what path she took, Addison could never shake the feeling that Leon was still out there, still waiting for her. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Olivia. She always wanted to be an actress and had given thousands of auditions but was never selected. One night, she wishes by blowing a blowing candle wish box she bought at a cheap store. On the box, it reads, "Make your wishes come true." She opens it. There are 8 candles. She reads the rules first. It says, 1. Don't blow the candles without making any wish. 2. A candle should be used once a day. 3. Don't break the candles without making any wish. 4. Don't ask for one thing twice or more. 5. Blow all the candles in 8 days. 6. All the candles should be blown out at night and with the same person. Then she reads the instructions. 1. Turn off the lights. 2. Light the candle. 3. Remember the rules. 4. Make a wish in a low voice and blow the candle. People do this mistake a lot, so make sure to blow your candle in a one blow. Your all 8 wishes will come true. After reading the instructions and rules, she turns off her light, sits on her bed and lights up a candle. She wishes that she would get a job as an actress. She then blows the candle and goes to sleep. The next morning when she wakes up to give her audition, she is selected. She couldn't believe at first that she was finally going to be an actress. She wishes one more time before going to bed to get selected in a short movie. The next day she gets an offer to work in a short movie, but as a side role. She wishes again at night to get a role as a main lead. Next day she gets rejected as a side role and gets selected for the main lead. She can't believe that this is all happening by that blowing candle wish box. Her first project was a success, but she wanted to become more famous. So before going to bed, Olivia turns off her light and sits on her bed, ready to make her 4th wish. She lights her candle, but before making a wish, she lets out a large exhale which makes her candle fire go out. She gets so serious that the instructions said not to blow a candle without making a wish, but then realizes it got a little dimmer. She then wishes to get more famous and blows her candle. The next day, when she turns on her phone, she finds out that she has 1 million followers and is offered to work on 2 more short movies as the main lead. The following day, Olivia was so excited, so she called her best friend to have a party night. Olivia's best friend Khaleesi rings the doorbell. Olivia opens the door and lets her inside. They watch a horror movie and eat snacks together. Khaleesi falls asleep after watching the movie. Olivia noticed that she had spilled alcohol on her blanket from a jump scare in a movie, but she got no time to wash it or dry it out. So she also lays down on her bed to sleep, then suddenly remembers to make a wish. As she lights her candle and makes her 5th wish, she was just about to blow her candle, when suddenly, Khaleesi scares her. Olivia gets scared, and drops her candle on her blanket. While they were watching the movie, Olivia had accidentally spilled alcohol on her blanket, which caused her blanket to catch the fire quickly. Olivia screamed as she felt the sensation of burn on her legs. She quickly throws the blanket with her legs on the carpet. The carpet catches the fire, but Khaleesi quickly puts her wool blanket on the fire. Luckily the fire didn't spread, but Olivia's legs were damaged badly. Khaleesi quickly took Olivia to the hospital. Her legs got a 1st-degree burn. She asked the doctor that how long her wound will take to heal. The doctor said, typically, a 1st-degree burn takes about 3 to 5 days to heal. However, the exact timeline may vary depending on the size and severity of the burn, but in your condition I think it might take 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks to heal your wound. After that, she gets home. It was so hard for Olivia to manage her wound. She cried a lot because she knew that she wouldn't be able to do her new projects she was offered, and that she has no other option but to reject them. The following night, Olivia turns off her lights and lights up her candle. She quietly wishes for her 6th wish and carefully blows her candle in one blow. The next morning when she woke up, she couldn't believe that her legs were completely healed. She headed to her work, And at night she wished her seventh wish to become more famous. A new day had arrived and Olivia was so happy about the new projects she was offered, and was getting very famous day by day. The following night when she came home late, she laid on her bed and heard something under her pillow. She picked up her pillow and under her pillow was her 8 wishes box. She smiled at it, and started to open it. When she opened it, a chill ran down her spine, as she noticed that her candle was broken in half. Suddenly, the room lights turned off on its own, and her candle lit by itself. She got so scared when she saw a ghost in front of her. The ghost was so horrifying, Olivia got hypnotized. The ghost in front of her blew the candle in one blow.